Michael.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, thanks for being here on Cinema Sound.
Really a pleasure.
Yeah. What do you have here? I mean, you've been building this studio for a lot of years. I was here when it was dirt, and you were digging to make it happen. You said, this is going to be so great. So what is in Soul 7 now?
Well, mostly what we have to do now is input, right? The mixing all takes place in the box. Almost all of it's in the box. That's where you want to be. But input stages, so regarding film, you're just worried about what you're going to overdub, if you're going to do a rare Foley session, or whether you're going to do dialogue replacement. So we have great microphones, we have some shotguns, we have great large diaphragm, Tube 67, FET 47, we have 414s, we have C12s, but I also have lav mics, and those are very helpful because that's usually what people are recorded on the set. So that makes it easier to duplicate. And then after that, you just have to have great mic pre's. So we have great mic pre's. We have flat tube mic pre's, this new Tree audio branch. We have original 1073 Neves. We have all those Neumann mic pre's, and I have modified Avalon mic pre's. 1176 Blue Stripe, 1176, some distressors, DBX. We rarely use the DBX anymore, simply because between the tube compression that's in the Avalon or the tube limiter that's in the Tree Audio and the 1176, we don't normally need beyond 3.
Because you're saying everything we do in the box.
Well, that's after it's been recorded, right? So usually people bring me the project, it's supposed to be done at the budget level that I'm working at, right? Where people are getting their entire film done for potentially less than it would cost for a single day on a regular dub stage.
Right.
Or maybe 2 days, and we ask them to have everything completed, everything edited. If they have sound effects that they know they want, that they've had their editor throw them in, all that, and they bring us the material. And then sometimes it's absolutely necessary. They've not heard it. Because a lot of times people are listening on they're listening on their laptop speakers, they're listening on their computer speakers, and nobody's ever put it up on something with a big woofer in it that you can hear all the rumble and the garbage and the stuff even above the voice range that is still married to the voice that you have to take out. The plugins like iZotope, those are, I can't tell you how great they are now. It's just changed my life. But you still have to sometimes replace a line. And a lot of times you'll be watching a film and you'll see, they've been looking at it on a small screen for a year editing it, and the person's face is right there. They don't even notice that somebody back here is talking. And you have to fill it in. Right. You have to at least mumble something in the background. So we have the input stage here. And occasionally, I'm a songwriter, so I write songs and I compose stuff, and I want to be able to put my piano down, or my piano and drum set, and a bass guitar and a guitar and whatever. And so,
I've been here when there's been a gap in the music, and you're like, oh, well, let me do this. And next thing you know, there's this beautiful piece and a cue in there, just while we're in the middle of a mix. So
it's a good place to be in my life. I get to bring to bear my experience as a composer and a songwriter, and as a producer and as a studio musician. I get to bring all those things together only on film. I really enjoy it.
What's the favorite score you've composed?
I listened to The Adventures of Milo and Otis over the weekend down in Florida, and it was really surprising. It really took me back to how much fun it was to compose. But I did the ending on Captive about a year ago, and the band I had was just absolutely terrific. Mike Shapiro and Bill Cantos and Hussein Jifri and Grant Geisman. And then I played, and then I had just the best singers. It was phenomenal, and it was 9 minutes long. And I guess something like that. I just love making music. Like you. I love making music. And if it makes a noise, I'm walking through a stupid department store, and my ring hits a handrail, and I take out my phone and start recording, tapping on the handrail.
Right.
I just love it. I was clearing a warehouse the other day, and I had an air compressor, and I started blowing off the bottom of a seat, and it started squealing, and I recorded for about 15 minutes all these animal noises that will, they'll be useful somewhere. Anything that makes a noise, I love it.
I think Zoom really needs to make, for guys like us, a holster for the H6. So you just carry it with you the whole time, just sitting on your hip, you're ready to go, because that always happens, right?
That'd be good.
It'd be really good.
Yeah.
I'm lobbying for it.
Okay, well, I think there are also shoemakers around here that would make us a leather holster.
That's a good idea. Probably this cobbler. So you talked about budget earlier.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of film budgets.
Yeah.
And give or, plus or minus, how much money goes to making sound, including music, for a filmmaker? They've got a budget. On average, what kind of percentage of the budget should they allocate?
Well, if I understand, if it's a line item, you're supposed to put about 10% towards sound. I know that I'm at the end of the whole process, and there's never any money left. No, every film comes in the door going, we've overspent. We've gone through everything already. So now here, can you please do this for a reduced rate, because we have no money left.
If you were a producer on a film,
if I was a producer,
how would you keep that from happening so that there was money left over for sound and music and everything else?
That's kind of like your savings account. Your retirement account. If you're going to set it aside, and don't steal it to do effects. That's a lot of what happens to us. Is they go, oh, but we had to do these extra 2 days of shooting because the first 2 days didn't come out, so we had to spend the sound budget on that. I mean, it's essentially bad money management. How do you keep it from happening? You just are fiscally responsible with your budget. And I got to tell you, most of the stuff that people do are silly kind of mistakes where they waste money on things that, well, I've seen people talk about putting graphics in places that just weren't necessary in a film, and holds up the whole production. It costs some time for the people that are waiting, and it also costs them extra money for the graphics, and you just go, goodness gracious, it was what you had printed out on your computer looked just as good as that. Why did we have to spend $13,000, which might have been, we'd have to get rid of some of the Foley days, get rid of an ADR day, get rid of a whatever else to let them have that money for a graphic. It's just not that important.
Right. You originally set up this studio to be very modular for digital audio workstations. You didn't want to just run Pro Tools, you wanted to run Logic and all kinds of things.
We tried to be a Logic studio, you and I together, for a minute. This was going to be a Logic.
That way.
Right. And we were still running Pro Tools 7.4. I think I had 4 rigs in here. And it was very early stage of the studio, but it really hit home. I had Simon Rhodes in here, who was the chief engineer at Abbey Road, with James Horner doing a project, and he really made me believe how much simpler my life would be if I just did everything in the box and stuck with one. Personally, with all the sequencing and stuff that I have to do, I can do it all in Pro Tools. I don't need to be outside. But, I know a lot of guys feel, I think you still operate in Logic. You're very comfortable there.
Actually, I mix in Pro Tools.
Oh.
I do the music in Logic.
You do the music, yeah. But see, I do even my music in Pro Tools. Everything is in Pro Tools. We've done the rare audition sessions.
And how's that gone?
Well, they've generally gone well, okay? So I've had one audition client who brings his project in, and everything is labeled, and everything is panned, and everything is wonderful. And I have another guy who comes in, and it's just a mess, and it takes me maybe it's supposed to be a 3 or 4 hour day for him, and it might take me 6 to 8 hours to prep his work before I come in. And, but that's just because he doesn't take the time to really spend prepping it properly. He throws sound effects in, it doesn't make them to length. Mm-hmm. He doesn't label them, doesn't label the tracks, doesn't pan them, doesn't assign them. And I have to go through before the mix and do all that.
So in a sense, if somebody came in with a Pro Tools session like that, it'd be just as horrendous.
Oh yeah, but you wouldn't have a Pro Tools session like that because you would never listen to it in Pro Tools like that.
Right.
And we've done Final Cut transfers. You and I have done things where we've taken from Final Cut, put them in here. Great. Logic, put it in here. Missed a few things, but we're still pretty good. Audition, generally great. But I mean, again, the easiest. I guess I had somebody bring in a 5.3 Pro Tools session the other day, and that was a real pain, because they were sound design files.
Wow, you can't read them anymore.
Well, you have to convert them, yeah, and it's a real process, But thank God for the internet, we would never have to crack a manual again. You just ask your question on the internet, and we're done.
So let's talk about, you just mentioned you have a client who doesn't bring things in. What do filmmakers need to know before they come to Soul 7, or maybe any dub stage?
Well, the real budget killers that I have seen real time, there are two, okay? On long form, people recently came to me with a film, hour and a half film, a little bit more than an hour and a half film, and they had, at the end, spent all their money, done all this, can you do it? And I made them a really great price, and they came back and said, Michael, and it was something that was close to my heart. It's about alcoholism, and they didn't have but half of the special rate. So we made it work, okay? We made it work, but when they brought it in the door, it was a movie about running. Okay? And I put it up, and there was no running sounds. There are people running throughout the movie, and there were no running sounds.
No
and I
Foley.
said, they said, the problem is that their shoes don't make that much noise.
What?
But you see them running. You have to have the noise. If you see it, you have to hear it. And their shoes didn't make that much noise. The bigger problem was that they had recorded almost everything off the back of a pickup truck, and there was a pickup truck muffler through the whole thing. So I asked them to recut that. That wasn't such a big deal. Set me back took them about a week and a half to get that done. And then when I got it, it was cut through about 2/3 of the picture instead of all the way through the picture. So now I've got to sit here, or I've got to pay someone to sit here and cut it through the rest of the picture and kind of assemble it. So they had a bunch of helicopter shots and drone shots from up above, and you would think that it would go away, but you see all these people running, even if you're seeing them from 100 feet above, you want to hear the roar of the cattle running, right? And so we made those sounds and put them in. That all adds, it takes extra time. And I have, tricks that I can use to do that. You hire one guy, and instead of having 3 different guys do one guy doing the dialogue editing and one guy doing the Foley editing and one guy doing the sound effects. You know, you hire one guy and make a special rate for the package of 3 so that he, you know, but anyway, so I get that done, and now we're already delayed, and then we mix. Right? And we do our first 2 days of prep mix so that we can ask them in on the 3rd day to make sure that we've got everything done. And so on the 2nd day, I say, would you like to come in tomorrow and check the mix because we're pretty close to done? And they say, well, the music won't even be done for the next 2 weeks. Right. The composer's out of town. I said, the music that we have in here is not the final music? And they were, oh, no, it's all temp. Well, you know, nobody mentioned that at the beginning.
And you mixed it.
We've mixed it to that music, and the music all goes away. All goes away. Something else comes in. And the composer actually had the audacity to say, I can just give you the music and you can fly it in after the mix is done.
Wow.
And I no, it doesn't work like that. You know, it's especially you can't mix sound effects. You can't mix sound effects and dialogue. You can balance dialogue, and you can kind of balance sound effects, but you can't really do a mix until you have all the elements together, and until you have the director sit here and say, oh no, I don't want any sound effects in that area, or oh no, I know the composer did a 3-minute cue there, but I don't want any of that 3-minute cue.
And how would you know if they're not there?
Oh, you don't know. Yeah, right. You get it in your film, you assume that you're going to be using it.
It's there, let's mix it.
Right. and the only thing that I do with that is if it really doesn't sound good, I do my best to make it sound good. Like you and I have been together where you just have to do a bridge part mm-hmm. or replace some horrible brass sample with a much better brass sample, right. Something, make it better, and it will elevate the project a great deal. But so in the end, what it comes out to is, am I really willing to give of my time and effort? I can't ask the people who work for me to do that. The mixer who sits in the chair cannot not get paid. He has to get paid. So when mistakes like that are made by the filmmakers, it still costs them. It's got to cost them. Whether I work for free, whether the studio is for free, and I don't like that. I don't think that we should work for free. I don't think, even if we love a project, you shouldn't be working for free, because we all need to make a living. Our rent is not free, our insurance is not free, the cell phone bill is not free. We have to pay for stuff. Even though we have solar panels here, I still get an electrical bill, and I still have to pay a housekeeper, and I still have to pay, it's still, we can't do stuff for free. What I really like to do is have the finished product ahead of time, and then I can go and I can make a couple of days of passes through where I can check to see, is the Foley all done? Mm. And where do I need help in the Foley? And most of the time the Foley's not done. So I have to bring in a Foley artist, and that takes days and it costs money. The production sound effects are most of the time not really cut. So the production effects might be there on the dialogue tracks, right? But they haven't been removed from the dialogue tracks and put down on their own track.
They're sitting there on the dialogue track.
They're sitting there on the dialogue tracks, so I have to do passes to go through and pull them down. And if there's something like a simple door close and it's not on the dialogue track, how much effort does it take for an editor who's spending 1.5 years on a project to throw a door close behind it, and have the producer or the director go, yeah, I like that kind of door close. Oh, no, it can't have a squeak in it. It's just got to be a soft close. Or no, I really want it to be dramatic and a squeak followed by a harder close, you know?
And so many of those things could have been done at the editor level with the director. And we were on a project, in fact, where a door close made a massive difference in the project. Massive. And the director was here going, wow!
Right.
Dumb door close.
Yeah.
And it was funny.
And in that same scene, they had the guy reach over and turn on a light switch, and it was non-existent.
Yeah, it's just and you're like, well, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Click, and all of a sudden things come to life.
And it was a comedy anyway, and it made it funnier. And you're like, what? Why? Oh, it just is.
You did a great job with that.
Well, we did a great job with that one.
The hardest part is when people want to hear everything on little speakers and still have it sound like it's an Atmos mix. We have the ability here to make a great 5-1 mix or to even make an 11-1 mix. But the people, you cannot, and you have to prepare. It's just like when you're preparing a shot and you have, like in the old days where you'd have a lot of small people on the screen, you have a big face in the middle of the screen now, so that on a small, right, it looks, well, you have to think the same way about your audio. What's the important stuff that's going to go on here? Is it going to sound good on the speaker of that iPhone that my client's going to watch it on? You know, and I have people check their mixes. They're checking their mixes at home on their iMac speakers.
It's reflecting off the desk.
And they're going, hey, it doesn't sound the way it did at your studio. No, I don't think it's gonna. By
the way, what are you running this on here?
We've got a Screen Array 3 system, the same as up at the Universal IMAX, and only they have 5 18-inch subs. We have 2, but I have better amplifiers. I have Bryson.
Only 2 18-inch subs.
Bryson amplification, and then we have Perot's on the surrounds, but the surrounds are all amplified individually, and it's the wiring is top notch, and it's
power things you have in the back, those special cables.
I have the special $375 power cables that people think I'm nuts to buy 11 of those for my power amplifiers. But to me, I heard a significant clarity in the low end when I put them in there. So that's why we do it. But I had somebody who brought me in a picture and told me it was finished, and 10 days in, they said, oh, Mike, don't kill me, but it's really not finished. We're changing the whole beginning, and we're going to change we're going to like edit throughout. Like, you know, you're envisioning that they're going to take 202 frame clips out of the middle of this picture, and nobody will make you an ADL list. And, you know, it's just going to be a nightmare to figure out.
Conforming nightmare.
Right, but it took them a year and a half. It took them a year and a half to get their graphic finished. And then they turned it in, of course, and go, okay, now that we're done, can we have it in 4 days? It's like, no, you spent a year and a half getting it to the way you wanted. We should take the proper amount of time to get it finished audio-wise. And one of the things that I would really suggest that the director make himself available. Even though he's so tired of looking at this picture, he's edited it and fought for it and done whatever, and now he just wants to turn it over and have somebody else finish it. He's got to be there for at least a day or 2 at the beginning to really go, oh, you know what, I never really liked that. Can we, so that you don't get to the final mix and have him go, oh, I really never liked that, after you've polished it for, you know, days.
So, because what you're saying, we hear all the time where the directors never show up, but is it your experience, just so our independent filmmaker audience can hear, that filmmakers don't actually show up for the bulk of the mix?
Oh, they don't want to be here. And honestly, the engineer mostly doesn't want to have them going, hey, blah, 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 on the cell phone while they're trying to hear what's going on.
That's what they're doing.
That's another problem. I mean, come on. This is supposed to make our lives better, but in the studio, it does not make our lives better.
Not when they're talking like this.
Oh, boy, if they're talking at all, even if they're in the back of the room whispering. It's just
because that's when you're doing ambiances, and then you're like, "Hey, man, what's going on?"
It's the same thing with Aura 3D explains it very well. You know, they put most of their energy in the front, the left, center, right in the front, and there are surround speakers, but they say that you don't need much information in the surround speakers because that's annoying. The way we are wired is that what the noise in the back of it is. Us is very likely a tiger sneaking up on us or an animal coming up to attack us, right? So they put almost all the energy in the front, and then they put the energy up top because that's where the birds and the wind and the trees are, right? So that is one thing that I've learned in simplifying. And I know I take a different approach. A lot of people like, oh, I'll put a cricket sound over there. And I honestly don't believe that. I think it can be distracting. We just went to a film over the weekend, and they actually had a noise coming. It was a 7-1 mix, and they actually had a noise just coming out of the side.
Just side fill?
Out of the left side only.
Left side.
And not the surround, not the front, but just out of the left side. And it was disjointed from the rest. You know, there's one thing about having an ambience that fills and envelops you and makes you feel like you're in the environment. But to me, and you know, again, it's a simple way of mixing. I don't want anybody to have to look off to the side and see what that noise was over there.
That?
Yeah, right. All the energy ought to be focused here, unless we're talking about doing VR. You know, that's a whole different game. But if we're talking about mixing in 5-1, 7-1, 9-1, 11-1, the information ought to mostly be here. The music envelops you, the ambience envelops you, the effects are mostly here. If they fly over, that's one thing. If they fly over this way, that's great, but they better not be sitting back here making you think, uh-oh, I got to turn around to look. All of it stays up there, and the dialogue stays in the middle. Still have that where people think that they can pan. You know, there are some things when people go off screen to be in the kitchen or whatever, that, you know, or if there are 3 people speaking, I've had this happen, where there are 3 people speaking, you need to be able to spread them out a little bit, especially, this is something in casting. I've had people bring in films where 2 people sound almost identical.
Right.
And they're speaking, but you can't tell them apart. You know, so it's left up to me to kind of EQ them separately, try to set them apart. But in casting, that would be a nice thing. Or even if it was just in the recording of them, to make sure you get them.
How would you do that?
How would I do that? You might have one guy where you make sure you have a full body sound, and one guy where you're just having the audio from out here, you know, off the boom. Maybe you'd record him only with the boom and let the other guy be here. If we were doing Broadway, I'd be putting something up on their forehead, and one guy would be here. So you know, it'd be different. Even if their voices were identical, they'd sound slightly different. But again, we can do some with the EQ.
Sure. So I'm an independent filmmaker. I've never done a nice, really great 5-1 or 7-1 mix. And I call you, and I go, I've got this film, and you say to me, and all of them, here are the things that you have to have ready before you show up. What are those things?
Okay. Make sure your dialogue is all pulled in.
What does that mean?
Okay, sometimes there are 3 or 6 cameras on a shoot, and they'll go, oh, well, it's not very clear on, so there was RF whatever problem on the lav mic, and there's a noise on that, but we're sure we have it on camera 3. So just go to the file that has camera 3 in it, and it's left to me to search through this huge amount of, there's 12 days or 14 days of shooting.
For a year.
Oh, yeah, and I have to go through and search out these lines. It should all be done. Get some intern to do it before we get on this dub stage and you're paying a mixer $800 or $1,100 a day to do that. It's not cost effective to have us do it here.
So dialogue pulled in.
Dialogue pulled in. Dialogue edited. So if there's if you like the sound of the lav mic, and if you've got a lav mic and a boom mic, have both tracks up there, and then take and shut off, edit and mute the boom mic if you're liking the lav, or use the boom. Like if you're in a courtroom scene and you got to have the judge in the courtroom on the boom as well as his lav, leave them both in, but have it edited the way you like it.
So I'm going to say as a filmmaker, yeah, but they sound really different when I cut back and forth. Do I need to worry about that?
Well, we're going to balance that out, but know that a voice would be in ambience, as long as the person is changing its place in the room, then no.
As a filmmaker, I don't have to worry about balancing it, though. I just have to have the mic that I think sounds best to me and have it edited and pulled in.
Right. I have some filmmakers that that are excellent about doing this, that even remove the mouth clicks, the noises, all that stuff. They take it out before it even comes in, and it saves me just days of work of going through and clearing that junk out. That's really helpful if it can be done. Again, if you're listening on better speakers, it's only $300 to go out and buy the JBL M3s. Those M series speakers are great, and you'll hear so much more than you will on your iMac or on even your little desktop. Alltech, Bose. Oh yeah, and I love them. I love them. I listen to them myself on my computer. But when you're trying to hear what it's going to sound like on a great sound system, all that stuff. I mean, I like to think that we put everything under a microscope here, and we clean it up as best as possible, so that no matter where it goes out, it's never going to be heard any better than it is here.
So dialogue. Clean, dialogue edited, dialogue pulled in.
Okay, dialogue pulled in. Sound effects, your production effects. Okay, so if there are door closes, as we talked about that, if there are, shoes being pulled on, whatever, that can be used from the production sound, pull those in.
And you want that on a separate track?
Oh, absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely on a separate track. And if you can, divide it up by type. So if you've got doors closing and you've got car sounds, depending on your picture, you got a lot of different car noises, put them on a separate track. Then we get to knowing about what Foley you want, right? So we'll come in and we'll beef up the sound effects and the production effects. The Foley will make everything come to life. And people just usually aren't aware of it, but as much as you can, keep that stuff off of the clothing sounds, off of the microphones, the dialogue mics, because a lot of people don't know to do that. Here's something. I'm sorry to jump around a bit. It's just nonlinear, this.
That's what nonlinear editors.
So people hug. People hug in pictures, and all of a sudden, that's all the dialogue I've got. That's ADR time. And you have to know that ahead of time. Budget for that, and know if people are going to hug on camera, you're either going to have your boom mic handy and ready, and that would normally be 2, right? But prepare to replace that stuff. And it's not as easy as you think, because particularly in comedy, it's almost impossible to ADR comedy.
Because of the moments and the performance.
Yeah, it's right there. But
what do you want to see from music?
Oh, I want to see a 5-1 mix.
Of the music?
I want to see a 5-1 mix of the music as a reference mix. Right?
Oh, right.
And then I want to see all the stems broken out.
And how many stems do we want to see?
Well, I'd want to see strings, and if possible, I'd like to see strings and low string separate, and brass and tuba separate. And if there's a drum set, I want to have the kick drum and the snare drum separate. So just for pannings, so we can put things in the center channel. People think that, oh no, I'll just mix it in stereo. And I've had that a lot, where people have delivered stereo mixes. And it's just not as effective as if you can take the overheads and pan them here, put the kick and the snare in the middle with the lead voice in the middle, and the echo on the lead voice left, right. You want to have the music as spread to take full advantage of the 5-1 as possible. And so as far as so if I've got the string separate with the bass separate, so that the reason is because I want to be able to control the bass, put it in the center, maybe add some side, maybe. Same thing with the brass, same thing with the woodwinds, same thing with the percussion. If there's anything special in there, like noises and stuff, please do not mix them in with the violins. I want to be able to take them and bring them up or down without having the violins pop up or down, right? That's simply it. Maybe 4, 5, 6 sets. When James Horner was working here with Simon Rhodes and Simon Franklin, they would do 10 5-1 mixes.
Of the music?
Of the music. So they had everything broken out into 10 sets of 5. And that way, anything that needed to change on the dub stage could change. Because things do change. And you don't want to have, I've worked with composers, and I've been guilty of it myself, where, you want to have them make as few changes as possible. Yeah. Well, that comes down to, do we pull the music all the way out because it's interfering with the sound of that wheelchair over there, and it's really important that we hear that wheelchair? The composer is like, oh, I'm sorry, that guy who's in the middle of the screen and he's beating that thing, could you just take that out? I'm going, he's in the middle of the screen and he's beating that thing. You've got to hear it.
But my music.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You should have written with that,
Maybe you shouldn't have put snare drums and all kinds of percussive stuff. Well, he's beating that.
Right. Make your hole for it in the music. Right. The great composers do that. They make the holes around the dialogue. They know how to do that. They know how to write that melody line so it's not moving every time the guy is speaking. It's a give and play where it lilts around him, and the use of pads. A lot of times we have music where we can save the music by featuring the pad and bringing down anything that would be distracting, and the director and the producer will let it fly.
The alternative is the music goes like this, or it gets re-edited, right?
Yeah, boy, the composer loves that.
Loves that.
Yeah, and we've had that happen. We've had that happen where the director just goes, you know what, I'm sorry, I know they spent a lot of time on that, but can we take the music from the end and fly it in? Can we take the, and it would be, if it were simply separated out, or you could go, you know what, that one annoying element comes out, the rest of the music stays. It would be great. Yeah.
So 2 more questions. What's the most important thing you want filmmakers to know?
that their audio is just as important as the picture.
It's only just as important? Can I get...
No. for me, and it's easy for me. The lead singer, in my transition from making records to here, the lead singer is the dialogue, and the dialogue's got to be there. For me, I want to hear everything. I was just at a picture over the weekend, and they had such ranges in the dialogue, and I sit right in the middle, and I'm at a sweet spot, and if you miss a line, I think it's just a sin. I think it's a shame. You should not miss a line. I want to hear every line clearly. And you have to, when you're the filmmaker, if you're making a comedy, allow for the audience to laugh. They're gonna laugh. And that next line, that next follow-up line that was so clever,
Gone.
Edit a little delay in there before your next line. The dialogue is key. And then, after that, the thing that nobody really thinks about is all that Foley stuff. That Foley stuff and the sound effects have to be there. And then that, again, as much of it as possible is finished before we bring it in, before we get it here. And then don't expect it overnight. Let us do as good a job as you have spent a year and a half maybe editing this thing, and you conceived it a year before that, and you shot it a year before, and here we are, and you want it in a week and a half. Allow some time. Just allow some time. Let us make your picture as good as we can make it, because nobody wants to be in a position where they're going, it's good enough. We don't want that. We want to go, that's as great as we can make it. And we don't care if we stay up all night. We'll make it as great as we can make it. And if you trust us with it, we will give back the best product we possibly can.
Fantastic. Last question.
Yeah.
Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Ray Charles.
Yeah.
Or anyone else. Give us your favorite moments with one of them.
Oh my goodness, with Quincy? I could go through, I could write a book someday about all the little things like...
You should.
Like where Quincy would, I would say, well, what I'm trying to do, and Quincy would go, don't try, do. Don't try, do. And he also used to tell me, always, Quincy was always operating at this level. And here I am, this new guy in town, and I'm getting, $1,000 or $10,000, and he's getting 6 months, and I'm getting 3 days and stuff like that. And he said, you know what? When they watch the picture and your name is up there, it doesn't matter whether you got $10,000 in 3 days or you're John Williams and you got $1.5 million and 6 months to do it. It still says composed by Michael Boddicker, and they're going to judge you as though you had $1 million and six. Just make it as best as you can. No holds barred. No justification, just make it as best you can.
That's great wisdom for filmmakers. From Quincy Jones.
Yeah. So, and what else? Okay, here's something that maybe people don't think about. Okay. I did a Michael Jackson project. It was the only time I ever heard him swear. He came to me and said, you can edit this out. So he said, they used to call me Lily Lily Tomlin had a character that patch cords in to so I patched the Moog patch cords. I wore them around my neck.
I heard Lily that there was another reason they called you Lily.
There was no Lily White. If that's what it was, no Lily White. No,
we're hearing it here. There's no Lily White.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a race thing at all.
Very good.
It wasn't.
That's handled.
Good. It was. I never felt that. He called me up and said, Lily, this mix sounds like shit. This is talking about somebody else's mix.
Oh, I see.
It's the only time I ever heard Michael swear. And would you come down here and tell me why it sounds bad? And I went down, major soundstage, major Academy Award winning people. But it was at the early stages of digital. So they had a very early digital workstation, and they were taking sound effects off of CD libraries.
16-bit 441.
Running them through a Mackie console up through, which in those days, now the 1640 VLZs have gotten so much better. In those days, these were just 1640s, and they would go through 300 feet of cable up to another Mackie mixer and into another D to A converter into the sound station. There was no rising edge. Okay, so the best thing.
What does rising edge mean?
Okay, on your waveform, right? The thing that makes it snap, right, is that rising edge. You want
transient
as crisp as possible. So, which surprises people. So here, we're watching a film after we've already mixed it, and somebody will go, "Oh my goodness, I never watched it before." But that person right there goes like this, and he's right on the edge of camera. And it's an hour and a half picture, and you've got 2,000 scenes in it, and somebody goes like that. And so you take the R09. I know you use the Zoom. I use a Roland R09. Actually, now I have an R26, a 6-channel. And I take it and I set it up here, and we watch the picture and we shut off all the sound, and I go like this and I take it. It is amazing how good it sounds, how crisp and clear it sounds. In the old days, when they were taking off of CD libraries that were already very processed, and not all CD libraries are like this, but some are. And they were already really processed. They put them onto a CD. You ran them up through a console and put them through D to A converters and through another. It just got too soft and mushy. So you can do so much yourself. You can do so much yourself. Even I've witnessed you do it with a phone, where you've taken an iPhone and recorded a piece of offstage dialogue, or a sound effect, and it's amazing how good it sounds, because it still has the rising edge on it. If you can use one of those little Zoom recorders or
anything that's 4824 that has a good microphone.
Oh yeah,
better than what they were doing at Michael's. So tell us what happened.
Well, so I went down and I watched it for 3 days, and I just made notes. At that point, I was in the habit of, because of another process I was going through, I was writing down what happened every 5 minutes of my life. So I wrote down what was happening every 5 minutes, and I saw what the problem was. And so what I did was throw out all the sound effects. I was able to, Michael trusted me enough that I was able to take the project. We threw out all the sound effects. We created all new sound effects from scratch. And all of a sudden, Michael's going, "Yeah, that's yes." If you go and watch the history video, that's what it was, and it looks and sounds great to this day. It sounds really, really sweet. The only problem is that it said on the version that I had, there was Rupert McConnick and Rupert Wainwright and Michael Boddicker were the 3 producers. I was the audio producer, one was the director, one was the producer. And when it came out, it said, produced and directed by Michael Jackson.
Right.
Yeah. So, that's something else you got to deal with. You can't fight with the dead guy,
Right.
And I don't want to talk bad about anybody. It's just make sure that your business as a composer, as a filmmaker, is straight and good and clear. And if you do right by people, they will come back and they will do right by you. And I honestly believe in that. What goes around comes around. So we've had a great run here, and it's just been going up. I think we did 9 projects, 9 films here last year.
Wow.
It's been going really well. And I absolutely love it. I love the fact that we have work as a team, that we have people who I can trust to do work even when I step out of the room to talk to the director about something. This product goes forward. That we have mixers who have done tons of projects. That we have people who really work on projects as though their lives depend on it, because they know Our lives do depend on it. Our livelihoods depend on it. It's got to be great. There are no excuses. Once it hits that Blu-ray or DVD or that film, that theater, you can't pull it back. It's got to be right and it's got to be great. And so we often do that, just so you know, for the director. We sit here, we'll work on it for 3 days, sit on it and let it sit for 2 or 3 days, or even go do a screening at another place, and then come back and go, you know what? That scene in Africa didn't play as well as I thought it was going to play. So can we, let's adjust that. And the director and I will sit here and we'll just tweak. You know, I wouldn't want to do the whole film myself, but I can sit here and we'll tweak a little bit, and we'll just make it so when they walk out, they go, absolutely everything that I ever wanted was done. I love that feeling. I love that feeling. It makes it. That's why I do it. It might be too much of a people pleaser, but I love to make people happy, and I love to have the product be where I can really be proud of it.
Even if for yourself.